All right, Pat, you brought me here to a ticket line?
Yeah, everybody likes standing in lines,
I
right?
like spending time with you.
No, check this out. Right over here, there's a giant boat sitting on a hill.
Whoa.
You know where we're at?
That's the Ark.
Yeah, we're at the Ark Encounter, and this is going to be an awesome day.
It sure is. All next on The
Creation Guys. The biblical account talks of an epic adventure that happened over 4,000 years ago. God had decided to judge the earth because of its wickedness, but he found one man righteous and asked him to accomplish one of the greatest tasks of all time, building an ark to save humanity and the animals from coming destruction.
I can picture Noah building that ark, maybe on a hill, serving as a constant reminder to all those around that they needed to turn to the Lord.
In modern times, God has raised up another man to build an ark, Ken Ham. Through the generosity of thousands of people, the vision of answers in Genesis, and the work of many skilled tradesmen, another ark sits on a hill, reminding all who see it that another judgment's coming, and they too must turn to the Lord.
And people from all around the world have visited the Ark Encounter. And today, we're going to go check it out. And we want you to come along with us.
Thousands of people from all around the world come to the Ark Encounter every day. In the parking lot, it's not hard to find license plates from every state in the Union. Just in the first 2 years, it was estimated that there were over 2 million guests.
As we weave our way through the line to catch the bus for the ride up to the Ark, we can hear the growing excitement of people around us.
Finally, into the bus, and then we take a quick trip up a short, windy road. The Ark Encounter first opened in 2016. It's located on a hill in Williamstown, Kentucky. The location was picked because it's less than a one-day's drive for a majority of the U.S. population.
As we turn the last corner, the Ark suddenly emerges in front of us. Wow, we're really here. As we step off the bus, we get our first glimpse of this amazing structure.
Wow, look at the size. This is huge.
As we get closer, we're overwhelmed by the size of this structure. The shape also catches our eye. Many people have depicted the Ark as a box, but here at the Ark Encounter, they've come up with an out-of-the-box idea about how it might have been designed. Remember, the purpose of the Ark wasn't to get anywhere or to win any awards, but it was to survive the flood. So, they've imagined that the bow might have had a wind-catching obstruction to keep it oriented correctly. Likewise, they built a fixed rudder to also stabilize the vessel and to keep it from being tossed from side to side.
You've probably always wondered, what did the Ark really look like? Well, this is built to the actual dimensions of Noah's Ark.
On the way in on the bus, they said this thing was 7 stories high.
Wow.
That's amazing. I'm really looking forward to seeing how amazing this is.
Me too. Let's go.
All right.
This amazing place has the right name, the Ark Encounter. Like other guests, we're coming here to encounter this epic account from the Bible, trying to experience what it was like in the days of Noah. And we hope to get answers, like, could all the animals fit? How could they feed all of them? How could 8 people, Noah and his family, take care of them? What did they do about fresh air and waste management? We hoped we'd get answers. Have you ever thought about what it was like underneath the Ark before?
Not really. I was thinking about, it being built up, but man, the construction on the bottom has to be pretty good because you don't want it to leak, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, that would be a little problem. Noah, we've got a little water coming through. Not a good thing, right?
Yeah, no, for sure.
Now, I'm thinking that maybe Noah's Ark was not up on concrete pillars like this, though.
You never know, Pat.
And I doubt he had the sound system.
Everyone needs music to work with, right?
There you go.
All right, let's go inside.
Okay, sounds good.
While Noah's Ark had only one door and probably just one ramp to get inside, this ark has a ramp that leads underneath the vessel to get inside. This is one of the biggest wooden structures that most of us will see in our lifetimes. They claim it's the largest timber frame structure in the world. It's 510 feet in length, 85 feet wide, and 51 feet tall. In Genesis 6:14 through 16, God instructs Noah, "Make thee an ark of gopher wood. Rooms shalt thou make in the ark, and shalt pitch it within and without with pitch. And this is the fashion which thou shalt make of it. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, the breadth of it 50 cubits, and the height of it 30 cubits. A window shalt thou make to the ark, and in a cubit shalt thou finish it above. And the door of the ark shalt thou set in the side thereof. With lower, second, and third stories shalt thou make it."
And those dimensions were the very blueprint for the Ark Encounter.
As we continue up the ramp that brings us into the bottom deck, I think about how Noah could have built the original ark. Obviously, he had the help of 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. But I guess it could be entirely possible that he hired other laborers. Also, we don't know how much experience Noah had. The Bible doesn't tell us Noah's background, but maybe he could have been an experienced carpenter or even a shipbuilder. But even if he was inexperienced, there had to have been a lot of great vessels built by that time in history. Surely he would rely on the technology already invented. Doing the math from the time cues given in the scriptural account, some have estimated that the entire project may have taken less than 75 years to build.
The real ark had one giant door, but in this ark we seem to be heading up and through a door in the back.
When you first walk into the ark here, one of the first things you see is how the walls were built. Now, Kyle, it kind of makes me think about, how did Noah build his ark? I mean, think about that. That was the largest wooden vessel ever built at that time, and he had to make it so it all held together through that incredible catastrophe and contain all the animals.
It wasn't a pleasure cruise. It was this big, stormy, gigantic, worldwide flood, right? Right. It had to stay together.
Right.
The team that built this ark carefully studied ancient shipbuilding techniques that were incorporated here.
This modern-day ark was designed by architect Leroy Troyer and his team, who worked with shipbuilding consultants and the team at Answers in Genesis. Many times, their teams envisioned what type of construction Noah would have used. One technique is called mortise and tenon planking, and it was used by ancient shipbuilders. Wooden planks are held together by tabs or mortises that fit inside slots of other planks called tenons. Then they're fastened with wooden dowels. The ancients used this technique to make tight seams and holes strong enough for ramming. Could Noah have incorporated some of these ideas in building his ark?
Okay, we made it inside the main door. Wow, this is amazing.
I'm already starting to see some animal cages here. Also, check out just the inside with the beams and everything. They've got so many sound effects going on in here. It's cool. This is going to be a lot of fun, man.
You think we'll see some dinosaurs?
I don't know. Were they on the ark?
I think so.
To find out, we started making our way inside and came across a display labeled Artistic License.
This display is very interesting because basically what they're saying is that they took some artistic license when they put the ark together. You know, of course, they've got to fill in details that aren't actually in the scriptures, but here they're reminding us that the scriptures, of course, are inspired, and then they use their imagination to try and fill in some of the details.
Yeah, I guess some people might say, well, that wasn't in the Bible, but sometimes you need to fill in some details, especially when it came to the ark.
Right, and what's kind of cool is some of the details they filled in is, how did 8 people feed all the different animals and take care of them? Where did they live? And all kinds of other details that Noah actually had to face. But what they did here was they tried to figure out what some of the best answers are to them.
Yeah.
As we walk further inside the first deck, we see lots of cages intended to hold the smaller animals. Already, we're starting to see some of the ingenious ideas that are being proposed as possible ways that Noah and his family could have taken care of the animals.
For instance, there's clay jars that would be filled with a reservoir of water or food that would replenish the dish as the animals drank or ate from it. And this is important. Only 8 people would have to tend to all the animals.
As we round the corner, we come across Noah and his family praying for God's favor before the voyage begins. Could you imagine how they must have been feeling? They were leaving behind the only world they knew. After the door closed, all of the wickedness of mankind would be judged. No one would be left outside of the ark. How much faith they must have had to trust that God would preserve them and all the animals inside the ark.
We start to see cages containing some of the smaller animals. I noticed that on the port side, there are animals like bears, sloths, deer, and pigs. These appear to be animals that we know in modern times.
But on the starboard side, the cages contain animals that went extinct since the flood. Creatures like the pterosaur or scutosaurus. It's amazing how well the artist depicted all of these animals.
And each cage is accompanied by signs that give interesting facts about each creature.
When I think about the ark, there's so many things I don't think about. How did they feed all the animals? How did they take care of them? But here they're imagining how they could actually store food.
That's amazing. I mean, you walk through the ark in different places. There's big canisters. I'm guessing kind of different food is going to be required for different animals too, right?
Right, exactly.
They really got to, make sure everybody's fed, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, some of them, if they don't get fed, can get a little grouchy.
Not too far away, we come to cages containing different varieties of bats, and this makes a good point. When trying to figure out how many animals were on the ark, how do researchers determine when something was just one original kind and when God made several different kinds? For example, God may have made just one bat kind that could express all the variety that we see in the modern bat family. Or could it be that there were a few different types of bats? There's a whole study of science dedicated to understanding the original created kinds of animals called baraminology. And when it came to figuring out just how many animals went on the ark, the researchers were conservative, always trying to choose a higher number. For example, when it came to the order that bats belong to, the order Chiroptera, they settled on counting it as 24 different kinds.
As we travel down the deck, we come across a place where we can look straight up to see the amazing architecture all around us. The amount of wood used in this amazing ark adds up to about 3.1 million board feet. End to end, that would be about 600 miles worth of wood. Some of these center poles are almost 50 feet long and over 3 feet in diameter. The wooden ribs weigh over 25,000 pounds.
So, Kyle, here we are, and there's a bunch of people standing in line to see a miniature version of the ark, a miniature model. I think it's so funny they're standing in line to see that when they've got the big ark right here.
It is really cool when you go and you look at the little details they put inside the ark and the cages and the animals. They've made this whole ark into a big exhibit, and that wasn't the way it was on the ark. And that ark over there really shows you what it was like, a 360 view on a miniature level.
So yeah, you can get kind of lost in this big ark. So I guess that one's kind of cool that you can see the whole thing all at one time.
It really is, it really is.
As we arrive on the second deck, we come to an area split into 2 different sections. First is the life before sin, and then from the fall to the flood. It's the entrance to a section called the pre-flood world.
Pat, this is a really cool part of the exhibit because it shows what life was like before sin at the very beginning, and then the destruction after that came because of the curse of sin and of Adam and Eve's sin.
Right, exactly. God created everything very good, and then he gave man a choice.
He didn't.
And we rebelled, and a curse was placed on all of creation. And that's what we see all around us today is that curse, right?
Yeah, in fact, that curse really came to a point right before the flood where God judged the world with destruction and brought an end almost to everyone in mankind.
Right, and it said, but God found Noah to be righteous, right?
That's right.
And so he called him to build the ark.
Right.
And that was a way of escape for his family. Well, nowadays, there's another judgment coming.
Yes,
and once
by
again,
fire.
there's a way of escape, and that's Jesus Christ.
It really is. By trusting in Him and that we admit that we are sinners, that we can't do anything good, but that Christ paid the price. With the penalty that we deserve is death, but He paid it.
So think about all the people who missed the ark. it's so important that we don't miss the next ark, the next way of salvation, Jesus Christ.
That's right.
As we continue forward, I think through all that we've just seen. Christ came to die for a wicked world. Romans 5:8 says, "But God commendeth his love toward us, in that, while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us." It was God again sending a way of escape from his coming judgment, just like in the days of Noah. Genesis 6:5 says, "And God saw that the wickedness of men was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually."
You heard a girl ask a question when you were going through earlier, right?
Right. She looked around at all the evil and everything going on, and she asked her parents, she said, "Why didn't God stop it?" And I thought about that, and God did, right? That was what the flood was all about, was God judging the evil.
Yeah.
Kind of reminds me of modern day times, right? Is there so much evil all around us? Well, why doesn't God stop it? Well, he is.
Yeah, he is. The Bible says another judgment's coming, and he's going to take all the righteous away, basically because of the work of Christ, only for those who believe.
As we look around, I can see animals that are thought to have been alive during the time of the flood. The designers had to rely on the research of many creation scientists as they decided what creatures to convey here. For example, there's a display addressing the different types of dogs. Well, obviously, Noah didn't have to take poodles, chihuahuas, Great Danes, and all the others on the ark. He probably just had to take one representative of the dog kind. After the flood, these animals would express all the genetic variety that God had packed into the original kind. This is totally different than what most people call evolution, which relies on mutations and natural selection to turn one kind of animal into another kind. This supposed process has never been observed. Instead, we see genetic variation that allows one kind of animal to express variety and adaptations, but never to cross the barrier into a different kind.
As we walk by the cages, we see how they worked hard to represent some of the kinds that were included on the ark. Here we see a very strange-looking animal. Close by, we spot another strange animal that kind of looks like a crocodile, even though they aren't related.
Some familiar ones that we see are the hyena kind, horses, hippopotamus, and many others. The displays show the glory of God and his creative powers.
Many of the animals displayed here portray creatures that have been mostly forgotten in modern times, but preserved in the fossil record. For example, here we see a short-necked giraffe.
The family of the Giraffidae only has two modern members that we're aware of: long-necked giraffes and short-necked okapis. It appears that they might have come from the same kind and that they're just variations in the same family. Likewise, we find giraffe-like creatures called Shancytherium in the fossil record. So when making the ark, designers decided to include these creatures to demonstrate that modern animals may be variations on the original kinds included on the ark. It's incredible to see what the Imagineers of the Ark Encounter have managed to create. Many of these animals on display were created using 3D printers as well as other sculpting technology.
So here we are at the stars of the show, the dinosaurs.
Yeah, that's Joe and Gina.
You named them?
Yeah.
So, you know, a lot of Christians probably say, wait a minute, dinosaurs on the ark? I don't think so.
Well, you know, it's interesting because if you go back to Genesis, day 6 of creation, God creates all the land animals on that day, including man. And then later, if you fast forward to the book of Job, there is mention of what sure sounds a lot like a dinosaur.
Right, which means that since Job lived after the flood, that some went on the ark.
That's right.
Wow, so what happened to him after the flood?
Well, you know, there's a couple of ideas on that. There is mention through history, like the book of Job and other secular sources, of animals that sound a lot like dinosaurs.
It could be then after the flood that there was climate change and the dinosaurs couldn't exist as well in that. And also maybe man continued to hunt dinosaurs, and maybe that's part of why they went extinct.
Well, yeah, I mean, the fossil record itself shows us that before the flood, it was very lush and just great environment for dinosaurs, but afterward, it was a lot more harsh, and they didn't come back in the same numbers. You think about animals today that we don't have anymore just because of human hunting, gone extinct. Dinosaurs could have done the same thing.
Kyle, all the dinosaurs that didn't go on the ark were killed in the flood, and we see these dinosaur graveyards all around the world where there's just hundreds and hundreds of dinosaurs
right.
that were killed
That's
by
right.
a mass amount of water. So when it comes to dinosaurs,
Yes.
those fit with the flood account very well.
Yeah, biblical worldview fits really well with the evidence.
Well, the question comes to mind. How many dinosaurs were on the ark?
You'll find the different kinds in these cages. It's pretty cool. It really catches your attention.
There are possibly 86 kinds of dinosaurs on the ark, but how many total animals would there be on board?
In this room, they talk about how many animals there would have been on the ark. And so a lot of people think about the fact that there would have been every kind of species, but that's not true because we know that adaptation and variation can produce several different varieties of animals.
As you can see on the sign, the ark needed to house the ancestors of fewer than 34,000 land-dependent species. The question is, how many kinds of animals would it take to produce the different varieties we have today? Using the worst-case scenario, it's been calculated to be less than 6,800 animals.
Wow, that seems awfully doable when you look around at all the different cages and everything that's here. And remember, it was the air-breathing, land-dwelling animals that had to go on the ark. It wasn't all of the fish and all the bugs and parasites and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so it makes it seem a lot more doable.
Very doable.
As we walk past the rows of cages, one can't help but wonder how 8 people took care of all these animals. Over the larger cages, we see catwalks, and again, chutes that could be loaded with food and water that empty out into dispensers that would automatically fill from the reservoir.
Another room not far away has a sign that reads, "Water and Waste." It explains some of the other logistics that Noah and his family would have to solve. So another question is about the lighting.
On these signs, they suggest that Noah and his family could have used olive oil as a fuel source that was piped into the different lamp fixtures.
In Genesis 6:16, God instructed Noah, saying, "A window shalt thou make to the ark, and in a cubit thou shalt finish it above." A sign points out that the normal Hebrew word for window isn't used in this verse, and the fact that a cubit shalt thou finish above it may mean that the top of the roof had a gap to let in light and air.
Also, Genesis 8:13 may have a clue about air circulation. This verse takes place during the time the flood was ending and the water was receding from the land. It says, Noah removed the covering of the ark. Could it be that this is referring to panels that could be open and shut for light and air circulation?
So now, what about clean water? I guess it wouldn't be too hard to imagine that the rainwater could be collected on the roof and routed into storage tanks. Then there could be a plumbing system made of bamboo or copper to distribute it around the ark. On this sign, it points out that it's been calculated that the surface area of the roof was large enough that just 1 inch of rain a week would be more than enough to fill the giant cisterns full of water.
The next problem, how do you get rid of the liquid wastewater? Here, they propose that they could have devised a drainage system from the cages that would empty into a containment system. That waste could then be scooped up and dumped into a chute that led outside the ark.
Okay, that takes care of liquid waste, but what about solid waste? Well, they propose on this sign that they could muck the stalls and put it into a wheelbarrow and move it to a conveyor belt that would dump it into a vertical shaft that would fall into the sea. So Kyle, as we've walked around the ark, I've been watching for the logistics that they had to take care of, things like watering the animals, taking care of the waste and the different systems they have, but what kind of energy did they have? How did they power things? Well, I think I figured it out. Right up here is an outlet. It looks like they had 110.
Whoa, I wonder why they didn't have 220.
As we continue to work our way down the deck, we come across another interesting display.
When you think of Noah going on the ark, you think of the animals, his family, the food, and everything there, but I like this room because it really makes you think that there is more. For instance, a library of different documents. That might be history of the world before, from creation up to the flood, or maybe things that they're going to need knowledge of to rebuild once they get off the ark, cities, irrigation systems, tools, any of that type. And so this just demonstrates that there were documents they probably took with them. The question is, which documents would you have taken?
So, Kyle, this is one of those things that I don't think about much when I read the account, but certainly they must have had a workshop to fix things, right? Because on my car, I know things are always falling off. I'm sure that there was always repairs to be made. Plus, I know it probably had a honey-do list.
Probably. Well, yeah, I mean, you think they were on the ark for 1 year with the up and down and the chaotic stuff of the sea. There's bound to be some issues that they're going to have to repair.
Right, exactly.
It makes sense that Noah's study was right next to the library. Is this something that would have been on the real ark? Well, we don't know for sure, but that's why the Ark Encounter is so valuable. It helps us to consider what the first ark might have been like.
And next to the workshop, we find a blacksmith shop. From the Genesis account, we know that there were metal workers long before Noah. Genesis 4:22 mentions that they were craftsmen in brass and iron.
As we walk through the different rooms depicting day-to-day life in the ark, you can't help but wonder about Noah. Who was this righteous man that God called for this epic journey? Well, the Bible doesn't give us many answers, but there are some details here in this display.
First of all, the Bible tells us that his name means comfort and rest. We know that he was married and that he had 3 sons that were also married. He was in the 10th generation since creation, and his father was Lamech and his grandfather Methuselah were still alive. Is it possible that they helped Noah? The Bible describes him as a preacher of righteousness. In this room, they use that artistic license as they muse about the backstory of this great man of God. And as we leave the room, Pat spots a display that really piques his interest.
So I like this room a lot because this basically shows how the flood has been portrayed to children for many, many years. When you look at this, there's different storybooks and they show this little tiny ark with animals hanging off the top of the deck and all of that stuff. It really does make it seem unbelievable. And unfortunately, I believe that most Christians have grown up thinking that it is just a fairy tale. But it's not, because when you're here at the ark, you see how massive it really was. You see the cages, you see all the animals and how they could have lived in the ark and how the 8 people could have taken care of the animals. We also look at all the fossils that we see around the world, all the graveyards, all the layers that were laid down. The scientific evidence shows that the flood really took place. I think it's super important for Christians to know that this is a true account and that parents need to teach it to their children that way.
Toward the front of the second deck, we come across one of the most meaningful places in the entire ark.
This is the actual door that goes outside the ark.
Right, well, it's not the actual one, but it's a replica of maybe what Noah's was like. But Kyle, can you imagine what it was like when this door closed? Not only for the people outside, can you imagine what that was like for them, but for Noah and his family realizing that the entire world that they knew was going to be left behind.
Yeah, Pat, if you really think about it, as he was closing that door, maybe he saw the storms approaching. Maybe he saw throngs of people knowing that their end was coming. The next time he would open that door is when the world was completely different, where God in his mercy saved him, and it was a whole new world.
Yeah, and think about this, Kyle. Once they came in for salvation and the door closed, it was over.
That's right.
The people were left outside, and they knew that they were going to be the last survivors.
That is sobering, for sure.
Not far away, we see a crowd of people gathering around what appears to be a little petting zoo.
Well, Kyle, I tell you what, their animatronics are getting better and better all the time.
Pat?
Yeah?
That's a real animal.
Oh.
Porcupine, sorry.
Nice. This is really cool that they've got this at the Ark. You can come and actually see the animals.
You know, I can even
smell
kind
the
of
animals.
smell what, just a little bit of what it might have smelled like here on the Ark. Yeah,
That's true.
I appreciate that real life experience.
You know, that really makes you think about if the whole Ark was filled. Wow.
Whew. In the museum here, they actually have an exhibit to talk about how do they ventilate the animal smells, and it's pretty ingenious.
One of the solutions proposed is that the Ark could have had a moon pool. A moon pool is a tall shaft that opens up to the water below, and many research ships have them today. The walls of the shaft and the air pressure above would keep the water from coming up into the Ark. As the water in the moon pool rose and fell with the waves, it would pump air throughout the rest of the Ark.
All right, Kyle, I think it's time to take it to the next level. And by next level, I mean up a deck. There's a lot to see.
All right, let's go.
Let's do it.
As we travel up the ramp and onto the final deck, we notice that there aren't really any more animal cages, but something that looks more like a living space.
So, Cal, I can't tell you how many times I've read through the account of the flood, and every time I've read through that, I have never thought about the fact that Noah and his family would need a place to live on the ark.
Yeah, and when you think about it, there was enough room for them to build penthouse suites on top, right?
Right, exactly. And just across from us, you can actually see some imagination of what their living quarters might have looked like. And then behind us is something I've never thought of either, and that's that they were growing their own food.
Yeah, not just for themselves, but even maybe for some of the animals too.
Wow, see, I'd never thought of that.
Yeah, I know. Now, what's interesting in the living quarters is you have everything that a house would have, like bedrooms, parlors, kitchens,
Wi-Fi? Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
Probably not.
Well, they have electricity, right?
Yeah, there you go.
I love the imagination of the creators of the Ark Encounter to think that, hey, let's create something that we can live in for a year and make it kind of cool.
I think that's what's so fun about coming to the Ark here, and the fun that I've had today is looking around and seeing things that I had never even thought of before, but say, well, of course, yeah, they probably had to have something similar to this.
Yeah, exactly. Very cool.
As we read the account of the Ark, we never really learn the names of Noah's wives or daughters-in-law. We also don't know much about Shem, Ham, or Japheth. So in this area, the creators of the Ark Encounter have taken a little more artistic license as they give the wives names and portray what hobbies they might have enjoyed during the journey.
So as we cross over the aisle, we come upon Shem's room first. Here we see him laying in his bed and reading. The creators of the Ark Encounter imagined that Noah's son shared some of the attributes of their father. And that's why they've shown Shem as reading from a scroll of God's Word because of his love for the Lord.
Upon entering Japheth's room, we see a scene of him playing the flute, while his wife Rena paints pottery. With all of the work to be done on the ark, we can imagine that they probably needed a little downtime to recharge.
As we cross back through the garden area to get to the other living quarters, I thought about the sunlight that would have been more readily available here on the third deck. Herbs and vegetables would have no problem thriving in low lighting like this. Also in the corner, they've placed a loom for making clothes, rugs, make needed repairs, or solve other logistical problems.
It all makes sense that near the garden would be the kitchen. Here we see Shem's wife, Ariel, preparing a meal. What's cool is not only do they make it as realistic as possible, but if you listen close, you can hear the sounds of her working. The pantry would be stocked for the voyage, and she would also have a fresh supply from the garden. Could it be that on the real voyage they had a stone oven to cook bread or make soup?
And of course we come to the dining area next, and as you can see, Ham and his wife Keziah are preparing vegetables for dinner. The thing that also catches my eye is how the table has a ridge around it. You don't want plates and utensils sliding off as the ark rocks back and forth. Also, you can see how all the shelves and cupboards are designed to hold everything in place. I wonder how many meals they ate while things were sliding back and forth.
Further down, we come to Ham's room. He and Keziah aren't here, of course, because they have KP duty. The Ark Encounter creators imagined that Ham was interested in engineering, and his wife had skills in handling the medical needs of the crew. As we look around the room, we see these interests expressed by the items all around us.
Finally, we come to Noah's quarters. We see the imagination of those who made this display as they depict some of the interests that Noah and his wife Imzara have. There are Noah's maps and scrolls, as well as sketches and drawings by Imzara.
As we walk out of the living quarters, we come across the bird aviary. Imagine all the birds that they would have brought on the ark. Remember that towards the end of their journey, Noah sent out a raven and a dove. The dove returned because it could find no place to rest, because the waters had not yet subsided. Then, in Genesis 8:10-11, it says, "And he stayed yet another 7 days, and again he sent forth the dove out of the ark. And the dove came into him in the evening, and lo, in her mouth was an olive leaf plucked off. So Noah knew that the waters were abated from off the earth." Here we see the scene as the dove returns to Noah with the olive leaf in its beak. It was only 7 days after that the dove was released again, never to return to the ark, signaling that the voyage was over.
I was pondering that amazing journey for Noah and his family as Kyle and I continued our own adventure toward the back of the third deck. In front of us is a theater, and across from that is an incredible view of the massive size of the Ark.
All right, we're here on the third deck of the Ark, and one of the really cool things is they opened it up so you can kind of see the whole deck from all the way to the bottom, all the way to the top. It's amazing.
It really is amazing. And Kyle, I remember when I first came to the Ark, it was before there was a lot of people walking around.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see how big it felt.
Right.
And I remember looking from one end of the deck all the way to the other end and just thinking, this is massive. And then I began thinking about how only a third of the Ark would have been taken up by animals. And I said to myself, does it feel like all the animals could fit on one deck? And I felt like, yeah, it could. And not that they would all be on one deck, but one deck's worth. The next question I asked myself was dividing that deck into an eighth, because remember there was 8 people to take care of animals.
Yeah.
Could I see myself taking care of 1/8 of the deck? Well, with all the automated systems they've got for feeding and watering and all that stuff, I came away saying, yeah, I think that could be possible.
Wow, I know they've done mathematician equations and all that.
Yeah, somebody actually did labor studies on that.
Yeah.
And actually found that they thought that it was totally possible.
Wow, so not just observable, but scientific evidence to show, hey, it could have been done.
Standing here looking at the 3 decks reminds you again about the beautiful wood architecture and craftsmanship on display here. Genesis 6:14 says, "Make thee an ark of gopher wood." So what exactly is gopher wood? Well, no one really knows. It could be a different term for a modern tree that we have today, or simply a species that went extinct. Here at the Ark Encounter, the poles are made from Engelmann spruce. The huge timbers are Douglas fir. The outside of the Ark is covered with radiata pine, and they chose bamboo for the flooring.
As we turn the corner to head back towards the front of Deck 3, we come across a mini creation museum which provides visitors with a scientific case for the flood account. It's an important part of the Ark Encounter because it helps visitors to understand that the flood is an actual account, not just a story.
We see a display that first addresses the scientific evidence for the flood itself. If the world was once covered by water, we ought to see evidence of it, and we do, everywhere. Signs here talk about the massive layers and fossils deposited around the world, as well as other evidences left behind.
While secular scientists fail to find mechanisms for the multiple ice ages that they believe took place over millions of years, scientists with a biblical worldview have made a strong scientific case that the waters would have been warmer during the flood. This is due to all the tectonic, volcanic, and other massive geologic upheaval that would be taking place during the flood. Warmer waters would lead to more evaporation and precipitation of rain, snow, and ice on such a grand scale that it would cause an ice age not long after the flood. And with all the ice age fossils we find above the flood layers, there seems to be scientific confirmation. Likewise, the book of Job in the Bible, which happened not too long after the flood, mentions more snow, ice, and cold than any other book in the Bible.
We come across the next section of the museum about another epic biblical account, the Tower of Babel. The signs here show how this would explain the origin of the people groups, their migration, and the origin of languages.
As we come to the next section called Ancient Man, it presents an idea that challenges a very strongly held evolutionary belief that man has eventually been evolving smarter. While evolutionists scoff at the idea that Noah and his primitive family could have had the technology to build the ark, think about what the Bible says. God made man intelligent from the very beginning, and historical records and other discoveries of ancient technological wonders confirm that this is true. And with their longer lifespans, think about how well they could master a trade. As we leave the presentation on Ancient Man, we come across one of Kyle's favorite displays.
So Kyle, this is a really cool room because it's talking about all the flood legends that have been throughout history.
Yeah, the Bible has 3 chapters dedicated to the flood, and other legends, in fact, I think it's 300 to 400 all around the world that also have the idea that there was a worldwide flood, that there was a family saved, and you think, boy, maybe this story was actually true.
Right, and matter of fact, Kyle, I've heard skeptics say that the Bible borrowed those legends and actually made the biblical account out of it.
Yeah.
A better answer for that would be, no, it was a real event, and it got passed on, and all these legends happened as a result of it.
Yeah.
But the Bible recorded the actual event that took place.
Now, what's interesting is right over there's another exhibit, a part of this that might show the Bible to be the most true of all.
So, what were some of the other legends? Many of them have themes similar to the biblical account. A man who builds a vessel to escape a coming flood. And some of these legends actually give a description of the vessels used to escape.
This is one of your favorite displays here, isn't it?
It really is, because what's really cool about this is it actually showcases the different legends and the descriptions of the craft that saved the family during those floods. And each of them one is pretty unique. This exhibit shows which ones would work and which ones wouldn't. And it turns out the dimensions God gave Noah for the ark are perfect for a huge flood that's catastrophic.
And that's actually been tested by different engineers that have come along and said, yeah, those dimensions would work well for surviving the flood. And the other crafts and the other legends are not.
That's right. Really cool.
As we end our journey and head towards the front end of the deck, we come across the covenant that ended Noah's journey, the rainbow. Here at the Ark Encounter, they've designed a mural to depict the sign given to Noah and his family in Genesis 9:11 through 14. And I will establish my covenant with you. Neither shall all flesh be cut off any more by the waters of a flood. Neither shall there any more be a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, This is the token of the covenant which I make between me and you, and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a token of a covenant between me and the earth. And it shall come to pass, when I bring a cloud over the earth, that the bow shall be seen in the cloud.
As we head forward on the deck to get back to the ramp, we come across a section of displays that is called the Voyage of the Book. Its purpose is to show the origin and reliability of God's Word. Here, visitors see manuscripts and hear the account of how we got our modern Bible. As we walk through, we are surrounded by faith-building information.
Soon we come to the nose of the third deck. I'm surprised to see what appears to be a comic book unfolding on the walls in front of us. This area is known as Searching for Truth. It follows the story about 3 college students by the name of Gabriela, Rio, and Andre as they search for answers on their college campus. This graphic novel helps visitors to understand how the information they've learned on the journey through the Ark can answer the skeptic's question against the biblical account.
And with that, we've completed our journey through the Ark. We've taken you deck by deck through all the displays, and we hope that you've enjoyed it as much as we have.
Kyle, we should also mention that there's more to see on the grounds of the Ark. Visitors can dine at the 2-level buffet named Emzara's Kitchen. They can also enjoy cruising down some exciting zip lines while enjoying the panoramic views of the Ark.
And visitors won't want to miss Ararat Ridge Zoo, where they can interact with trained staff and animals to learn more about the incredible creatures that God created and Noah took on the epic voyage. They can visit with alpacas, emus, kangaroos, llamas, ostriches, yaks, and zebras.
This Ark Encounter is really an amazing faith-building adventure.
Well, Pat, we've had an amazing day here at the Ark.
awesome.
Man, what an amazing testament to the flood and to Noah and to the salvation that we have through Jesus Christ.
Absolutely. And you know, I've just been amazed when I think about all that God did through Noah. But then isn't it interesting that God raised up Ken and Answers in Genesis to build another ark? Once again, a testimony to his glory.
Yeah, but I have a friend who came here and brought another friend who had walked away from the Lord and came here and she rededicated her life. So this is making an impact.
It really is. If you haven't come and seen the ark, I invite you to come see it. I think you'll really enjoy it.
We'll see you next time on The Creation Guys.